Why does it always start like that? Now people know I have a messy room. All right, let's get everything started. Uh, Unlike my brother, I don't do beatboxing. Okay, I just sit here and I ramble. 0904. I believe that's her handle. If I get it wrong, I'll just correct it because, I adapt. That's what I do. All right. Now I'm going to send this to Mandisa if I can find her so she can hop on. I know I'm talking to myself because there's nobody here, but that's okay. I'm going to prepare to interview Mandisa Thomas. She is the president and co-founder of Black Nonbelievers. Obviously, oh, there she is right now. Now, obviously, this is only the first 5 minutes where we just kick it. Things are great. And, just a little warm up, man. Clear the air, make sure everyone's comfortable. Well, hello there.
Hey, how are you?
You look so nice, and I am so happy to see you.
Yeah,
This
same here. It's
COVID
been a
has been
while.
cruel, just like, I want to go to recovering from religion, and then, oh, yeah, we can't go out.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had to do things, we have to take to online more and be very, very careful when we go out. It's a damn shame every time you get a cough or something, you think you might
Oh,
have it.
man.
I mean, it's just like, my goodness.
And you know what? Did I get your handle right on the pinned
Yes,
comment?
yes, you did.
All
Yep.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Hallelujah. Won't he do it?
It's
That
funny.
motherfucker he'll we cuss on here.
Oh,
All
okay.
right.
Good
You
to
from New
know.
York. All right. So make it happen. I mean, but that's I guess one of the positive things about COVID is you don't have to go New York on nobody. You know what I'm saying?
I don't
You
know.
can just
If they
flame
get
them
too
up.
close, you might be like, hey, you want to back the fuck up. Like, for real.
Like the accent come out like, yo, son,
That's so funny.
Harlem world, what the fuck you
Yeah,
mean?
I'm
Nah,
from
it's
I'm from Queens, but yes,
Queens.
no. But
Uh,
it's just been interesting, how things have. Hey,
oh,
Mike.
Cosmo Memory. Thanks,
Yes.
thanks for the follow. He liked a lot of stuff.
Nice.
Is that like Instagram courtesy? Like when you follow somebody, you gotta like everything. Like
I
I
mean,
you
it's
know.
it's cool if you do, or you just
Okay,
say thank you.
cause I
I
feel
think I
rude if I
feel
don't
like
do it
it's.
back
I just feel like
because
it's courteous. I think it's courteous to just engage with the people, with your followers and stuff.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, of course. But like I have some people who did just like almost every. I'm like, wow, okay, because I feel like a creep if I like something like past three, like a month. But but I know like some people just do it. So I'm just like,
Liking is one thing. The constant DMs, the just hey, how are you, stuff like that. I mean, I can tell you about a lot of creepy shit that we have, encountered,
well,
especially a lot of women encounter. Yeah.
this is the atheist community. I
Well,
mean,
let's
we're
not. I
all,
mean, you know what? Yeah, it's
and,
that plus. Yeah, it's a lot of
I'm part
stuff.
of the atheist community and I'm part of the FGC. That stands for the fighting game community. And
Okay.
as you may have heard, there was a lot of sexual assault going on.
Yeah, I've heard about
So,
that within the gaming community. It's
it's like, man, I'm surrounded by predators. Oh my goodness.
well, you even if you're surrounded by it, just best it's best you don't become one.
What did Joey Coco Diaz said? He said the way it was really stupid. But he said the way to not me too is to be me tooing, like or something like that. It was on the Rogan podcast, I think, or maybe his
Oh,
own. All right, man. It's almost 8 o'clock. I guess we can officially start. I mean, what the hey? We got Cosmo Memory
yeah.
supporting
Hey,
us. So I hate to start off heavy, but a
yeah.
couple of tragedies. First, the most breaking. the amazing Randy.
Yes, yes, he just passed away today.
Was it of? I didn't read anything about it. I just saw headlines. Was it just natural causes? Or like what?
More than likely, he was 93. He was old. I mean, he
Yeah,
was up there.
he
So,
was.
or as I like to say, of a mature age. But yes, he's lived a long time. I mean, he has. He's carried quite a legacy. So,
What's your fondest memory of him?
well, it's actually for me the first time I met him. It was in 2011. It was
Hmm.
at an American Atheist Regional Conference, which was in Fort Lauderdale. It was a place in Fort Lauderdale. And, I had heard a lot about him, but, he was just so cool and just so personable. And, he actually said, I appreciate what you do, because I know you have a hard road ahead of you. So,
Right.
I mean, he was
Most
just so
definitely.
cool and he was funny.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
He's a really cool dude. Yeah.
I'll segue into this real quick. The hard road ahead of you. Like, I remember on, I believe it was Unsung. They interviewed Fat Joe,
Mm.
and Fat Joe, he said, like, to have a chance in the industry, and I quote, "Yo, I had to teach myself how to be a pussy, yo." Like, that's what he said. Hey, my little brother Brandon just joined. What's up,
Hey
Most Dope?
there.
He's 1/3 of the SOS podcast. So, like, which basically just said, he had to learn how to just not be street so he can, survive the industry until, like, did you feel like you had to do that? Like, like, because I'm pretty sure you got mansplained too. I'm pretty sure you had, racist comments thrown at you on the sly. Did you ever have to force yourself to let something slide just so you can save face?
That's basically my life.
Yeah.
When you've grown up where I have, for those of you who are familiar with my background, like you said, I'm from New York. I'm from the projects. And so, most anything in life, you kind of have to choose your battles. And so that's something that I'm used to. And when you navigate, certain, communities and certain worlds, especially as a Black woman, I've had to do that, and I'm a Black
Right.
woman who is from the hood, or, who is a non-believer, and so really there's been some things that, and I was raised with an awareness that few people have. It's I've kind of had to grow up before my time. And so,
Mm-hmm.
whereas I've had to learn how
Oh,
to temper, I had to
yeah.
learn how to temper
Oh,
a lot of a
I could
lot of
tell from your
things.
baby
So
picture that you had to grow
yeah,
up.
it's so
Yeah,
funny.
if you guys go to Mandisa's Facebook page, she has a picture
Or
of
my
herself.
Instagram,
Oh,
my
on
IG
her
too. So my
Instagram,
IG,
okay. Yeah, she has a
yeah.
picture of herself as a baby, and I guess somebody must have been lying their ass off around you because you was looking like this nigga here.
That's funny.
I don't trust that.
Yes, I started
No.
perfecting that early.
So, speaking of your childhood, now you're an interesting one. You're rare. You were raised secular,
Pretty much.
so
I wasn't raised and I grew up with religion all around me and the church all around me, but in my immediate family, in my immediate household, as well as with my grandmother who was holding me in that picture where I had the side eye, there wasn't much religion on that side of the family at all. My grandmother was very festive. She loved celebrating holidays. She loved, cooking for the family and such. But there was never any prayer. Now, there are a few of my aunts and uncles on that side of the family who are religious. And this is my mother's side, by the way. And also, my mother, just made a conscious decision that she was not going to raise my brothers and I in the church. Now, for a while, we were involved with the 5% community, and you're aware of that. I
Mm.
know you're familiar with that
But
community there.
but for the people who aren't
Mhm.
familiar, can you just give a quick little breakdown?
Yeah, sure. So the 5%ers, for those of you who aren't aware,
Oh yeah,
uh, uh,
y'all gonna be mad as fuck at us because
yeah, you
there's a
probably
lot
are.
of bullshit that we don't believe that y'all do. But anyway, go ahead.
Oh, well, let's try to be a little. We'll be a little,
Yeah, we'll be nice. We'll be
tactful.
nice. We'll be nice.
So the 5%ers are a. I saw that. They're a sect of the. They were a break off from sort of a sect of the Nation of Islam. If you can break down Islam somewhat, or the Muslim religion. You had the Orthodox religion, the Orthodox belief, but then you had the Nation of Islam, which was made very popular by, Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X. And in the 70s and the 80s, there was the Five Percenters became quite popular. Now, these were the guys who talked about the gods and the earths, like the Seventh Crescent, all the other stuff. And most of them were, ex-cons. They kind of found religion in jail and found a way to tie it even more into, being proud to be Black and being the religion for Black people and such. A lot of misogyny involved.
Of course.
A lot of women being subjugated to a lot of, like I said, male bullshit. A lot of expectations of being subservient. It was just interesting to have had a different perspective other than your, the fundamental Christianity. Or the Christianity that most people experience, especially within the Black community. But so they would have gatherings and stuff. They would have talent shows, and there would be talks of like healthy eating, healthy living, and such. It's just the other stuff though that was a major problem. You gotta have to see
with the good shit, and then you actually like look into it. You're like, wait a minute.
Right. Especially as a woman, especially if you're an outspoken woman too. Woo, you had a problem. Yeah, you had a problem with them.
Yes. You had a problem. Eccentric, she's also a non-believer, by the way. So shout out to Eccentric.
Hey, how are you?
You should definitely check out her music, Mandisa. She's different. She's definitely different. Okay. And,
is that a compliment or an insult, dude? I mean, my goodness.
It's a compliment for sure, because she probably calls herself a weirdo.
Oh. Aren't we all? Aren't most of us in some way?
So Mandisa, why call yourself an atheist? I mean, why can't you call yourself an agnostic?
Well, simply put, after much exploration, much thought, and getting over that fear, I simply do not believe in any God, spirits, or supernatural beings. And, I think about my upbringing, I think about my perspectives as I grew up, and I'm just like, I had a problem with religion for the longest time, but, I still kind of thought to myself, well, I perhaps believe in some sort of, divine entity or spirit or whatever. But, as I did more research, as I did more reflection and contemplating, I just realized that, the term atheist really isn't as scary as so many people. At one time, I would have thought it was.
Yeah, me too.
It's a very simple definition, but, if you're truly honest with, if you're really honest with yourself, that's simply what it means. The rejection or the non-belief in any gods, spirit, supernatural beings, all that stuff. They're put in that fictional category.
Mm-hmm. And what a lot of people don't understand is agnostic can be used along with atheist, because we don't know whether or not God exists. We just don't. We're not convinced. That's all it is.
Correct. Yes. The term, agnostic, and we can get into, I know people do the battle of the labels all the time, right? But, I could consider myself an agnostic atheist. And it's like, my thing is, look, there's no sufficient evidence to prove that there's a God. And one, I don't really care. And also, I don't really care if there's a God. And if there was a God, there'd be some problems, there'd be some questions that we have that,
right.
So it's a 3-step process.
I mean, now
we want to go there.
if there was a God and it was honest and was just like, look, bro, I was bored and I just wanted to see what I can do. I just left y'all to our own devices, man. I just started making up some shit. And I just sat back and laughed.
Right. But yet, if you still don't believe in me, I'm going to condemn you to hell. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to put some plague on you. All this other stuff. I mean, it's just like, my goodness.
Yeah. Like growing up in the church, like I always thought like, this supreme being seems very human.
Correct. Yes.
Because like, what are you jealous of?
Yes. And I used to sing in churches with my voice teacher as a kid, and I could never reconcile that. I would hear about, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and, King Jesus. I'm like, what? Like, wait a minute.
I am a sheep.
Yes, yes. Just a lot of, just a lot of condemning language that was supposed to be coming from, the God of all people. So it was just like, this just doesn't make much sense at all. So, and I just never ever, I could just never reconcile that.
Mm,
you know it never made much sense to me.
right.
I mean, I grew up to understand that,
Exactly.
you know I could understand how some people form an emotional attachment to it, but for me, I was just like, ugh,
Yo,
this is
Kai,
kind of creepy.
you actually spelled out. That's
Right,
funny.
exactly. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
really.
like, that's what he deserved.
Yeah.
Like, but but why? So, what's it like for you? Like, especially living in Georgia, like being outspoken and black, because you wear your atheist A on your chest. Well,
Hmm.
BN, black non-believer on your chest, proudly.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, what's that like?
It's been interesting. There's been a gradual process over the years. My family and I moved down here at the end of 1997. And it was
Ooh,
a
that was
bit
back
of
when the
a
word
culture
atheist was
shock.
just like,
Yeah, I mean, it
what
kind
the
of went
fuck did you just say to me?
right.
Like,
So at that time, I don't think I considered myself an atheist.
okay,
We were just trying to be. We were a family. My daughter was 3 weeks old when we moved down here, so we were just
shout
trying to
out
get the
to
lay of.
Jen.
And Janae is her name.
Oh,
Yeah.
damn, I'm sorry, Janae. I always wonder how you pronounce it, but go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we were just trying to live. And, Atlanta at that time it was still Freaknik. It was at the end of
Hmm.
Freaknik, all the,
That's the weirdest
all the
thing. Like,
stuff. Yeah.
we're so
There's
fucking
this,
religious, but like we have these strip clubs
right. You have the strip clubs that don't
that don't
have,
close.
right. They close late, and, it's fully nude and you can drink there. So it's just like, it's very, very interesting with that dynamic, especially in Atlanta. And so it was a real culture shock for me to be asked, what church do I go to? And I was just
Right.
like, wait a minute. That was the first time I had ever heard of Creflo Dollar. I am like, what
Oh,
kind of pastor
word.
has a name like that?
Sid
I was
Breeze
just
was
like,
good.
oh my gosh, that was just so weird. And so over the years, I was, like I said, in addition to being asked, what church do I go to? There was always an assumption that as a Black woman, especially, that I go to church and that I believe in God.
Hmm.
And so, and I mean, I've, made different friends over the years down here because, people. I
Right.
like I like to think I'm pretty personable,
Yeah.
but somehow the religion and the whole God thing just always crept in. And there was a time where it wouldn't have bothered me that much, even though I would wince. But then after a while, especially as I started
Daniel was
seeing
good.
more people, talk about the hypocrisy of religion, Christianity in particular, and how that mirrored my thoughts. I was like, wait a minute, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
And, just being as, open minded as I was, I began to, get more irritated with, people, the push for religion and
Hmm.
people's beliefs and such. And so, I remember when I connected with Jeremiah Kamara. Um, he's a favorite of ours.
Hmm.
So, I remember hearing him on Michael Baisden, and also finally meeting him in person, watching Bill Maher's Religulous, and I was just like, holy shit. First of all, and then you're seeing that there's more people who are, questioning
Yeah.
and such. And then as I started to become more outspoken, I was finding other people, I was finding other Black atheists in particular, and there were people who I knew and grew up with that were like, oh, wow, I've had questions too. I don't believe
Right?
in it either. So,
Yeah.
and this was after one of my mentors tried to discourage me from speaking out, which of course did not sit well with me. I was like, hold up,
You like, fuck that shit.
yeah, I was like, but wait, you didn't raise me to be this way. You
Yeah.
raised me to, to challenge everything.
And that's like the weird hypocrisy. Like, there's this big crit line, and it was like, he said something along the lines, it was on the song called Time Machine, and he was like, don't believe in nothing that you can't see. unless it's
Mm-hmm.
God, something. I'm like, what
Right.
the
Like,
fuck
wait
you
a
talking
minute.
about? Like,
Right.
I'm
Yes.
applying. You got to apply that logic all the way around. So that was interesting what you said. So what was it that made you and your co-founder just say, "Yo, we need to make an organization dedicated to Black non-believers"? Like, what
Okay,
made
so
y'all
I do
put
want to
y'all's foot down?
clarify. I do want to clarify that we co-founded just the Black Nonbelievers of Atlanta. So
Okay.
I claim foundership of Black Nonbelievers, but
Yeah.
I'll go into that in a moment.
Okay.
But so I attended an atheist meetup. It was at the Thinking Man Tavern in Decatur. If you're familiar with that area near Agnes Scott
Squirrel
College.
friend was good.
Yay, what's going on there, girl? How are
All
you?
right, we
Right.
lit. We lit.
So after and I had talked with a black atheist that I had connected with online.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was telling me about the challenges that he had in when you join in with predominantly white meetup groups,
Yeah.
with white atheist groups. And so I thought, well, in trying to find a community, I wanted to give it a try. I'm like, well,
Lions Lee, what's up? I guess that's how you say it.
Lioness Leah.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
Lioness. Okay, Lioness
yeah.
Leah. That's how you say it. That's good. Anyway.
Yeah. So in trying to find more people, like-minded folks, and also taking into consideration what was said to me about, engaging or joining those meetups, well, I found that what they said was
Thanks for
was
the
pretty
clarification.
accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, I got the whole I never met a black atheist before,
Mm-hmm.
and besides the co-founder of the local group, we were the only black folks there. And so that ended up turning into a debate on how, well, there was some passive aggressive stuff that took place.
Of course.
There was a white woman I was talking to. As soon as the other guy walked in, she offered to move so that we could sit together. And I'm like, but I don't know him. I'm
Right.
like, first of all, why are you assuming that all black folks know each other or
Right.
that we just, but after getting into some and to be fair, the co-founder tended to be a very pretty argumentative individual. I found that out later,
Okay.
but after the meeting ended, we did get to talking, and I said, there has to be more of us out here, and especially, that was at the end of 2010, 2011, when the Eddie Long scandal had surfaced.
Oof.
So there were a lot of people who were talking a lot of shit about religion, and so a
Yeah.
lot of black folks too. So I said, there has to be more of us out here. There's no way that, I see all these people online. I see all these people
Right.
questioning religion. There have to be either more people hiding. They're either hiding in the church, or they're just not making themselves known because, we're surrounded by so many goddamn religious people.
Right.
So that's when we came up with the idea to form Black Nonbelievers of Atlanta. We started off, like I said, locally. It was supposed to be, a fellowship. I found out later that the co-founder, who was a former pastor, was trying to make it sort of church-like. And me not growing up in the
Right.
church, I'm like, hold up, we're
Right.
not going to do this whole just church thing. But
Right.
uh, we basically started the group on Meetup. We created a website, and so from there we started networking. We started connecting with the local groups, and also we just made sure that we were connecting with the folks that we knew were in the area who may or may not have been associated with other groups, either online or in person. But we were officially starting this network not just to connect more of us, but to also connect with the broader atheist secular community. So
Okay.
it just so happened that after we parted ways, and after there was interest in starting affiliate groups or similar groups in different cities, that we expanded to a national. We expanded to a national organization just based out of Atlanta.
Okay. And so, of course, you had to get those questions.
Mm-hmm.
Why Black non-believers? I mean, what does your race have to do with it?
Oh yeah. Yep. I remember the first time we were asked that question, and I was like, why are all these people coming at us like this. I
Right.
was like,
It's
wait,
not like you
what?
can't join. Like, you can join if you
But
want,
not
but
only that, it's like, look, the question of diversity and how can we get more Black people? How can we get more young people? The whole diversity and inclusion question has been asked for a very long time
hmm
because, just as I experienced at that first meetup, the white woman said, well, I've never met a Black atheist. It was like there was still, and which we can kind of say there is now, but that's changing, right? There's still a scarcity of people of color and Black atheists that attended atheist meetings.
hmm
So it's like, okay, if you're Black and you're coming out of religion and this is the first thing you see, and not only that, you're also dealing with these microaggressions, you're
For
also
sure.
dealing with this idea from some white people that somehow you speak for the entire Black community. And
hmm
it's not that they're being intentional, but sometimes it's the subconscious thing
Right.
that becomes more of a problem than anything else. So you want to be in a space where you don't have to explain yourself,
Yeah. Yeah.
either
You just want to
to,
take a breather.
right, first of all, it's good to see more of us in numbers,
Mm.
as far as Black folks who are atheists and non-believers, and it was needed. I mean, it was absolutely needed. There was a lack of, there was at the time there were other organizations that existed. You had Black Atheists of America. You had
hmm
Black Skeptics based in Los Angeles. You had African Americans for Humanism, but
Yeah.
they weren't doing. I mean, sure, they were out there. But they weren't on the ground and actually meeting with
Right.
people and providing that community and support like we ended up doing. And so,
Because,
uh huh.
oh no, I was going to mention, like, when I was searching Black atheists, I remember I discovered this YouTube channel called Black Atheists of Atlanta, and I was
Oh
like,
yeah,
oh, I
yeah.
found some brothers.
Oh,
And boy,
oh
I watched some
gosh.
of the videos. I was like, oh shit. Like,
Yes, and
but
that's a very interesting story there too.
but when I found Black Nonbelievers, I had the same reaction as everybody else. Like, oh my goodness, a group like this in the South. Because before I discovered Black Nonbelievers, the only Black atheist I knew about was Anthony Penn and
hmm
Ayan Hirsi Ali. Those were it,
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but once I got connected with you guys, that's when I learned about Alex Jules and all them,
You
you
find
know,
there's a whole community, and
and
that's what I
you. I
found. Yeah,
mean,
yeah. At the time, I was like, "Wait a minute! You mean to tell me that there's this
Win
many?"
13, what's
Yeah.
up?
Hey, I know.
Or
I remember
Lenny.
you. Yes, that's Blair. Hey. So I didn't realize that there was a whole community, and I just wanted to be a part of it.
Right.
I wanted to see, how I could meet more people because I had started meeting more folks online. So I would almost say it was accidental that I became this leader slash activist because I saw other people doing it. I had learned about them. I learned about Alex Jules, Sikivu Hutchinson, Ayanna Watson,
Uh-huh.
Debbie Goddard. And so this was at the end of 2010. But but I wanted to, the one thing that was important for me, because you and I are both hip hop heads, right?
hmm
We are, because I consider myself to be grounded and to be a part of communities that intersect.
Yeah.
And so what I noticed about the secular community was that it was still speaking to a very, intellectual base and appearing to talk at people and not to them.
hmm
And also there was this slant as if there were only white people who had, the answers to atheism.
Right.
And that certainly wasn't my upbringing because I remember a lot of, my background also reflecting on that compelled me to, I remembered the number of Black folks I remember who actually challenged the church and challenged Christianity, even though there are a lot of Black folks who have amnesia about that.
Oh, of course.
So, we wanted to bring something that showed that, okay, there are a lot of everyday people who are non-believers
hmm
and we have different interests. We have families. There are a lot of things that we like to do, even within our own communities, and we rep the culture.
Right.
We rep the culture. We represent, we are fully Black all the way, even if there are some folks who feel like, well, and we also reshape that narrative of what it means to be Black,
Yeah.
because we know in our communities, to be an atheist means that, first it's bad enough that you're rejecting God, but it's like
Oh, I
you're
mean,
trying to be
you're a
like those
Satan
white
worshiper
people.
now. Oh
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah, because only white people can think critically. You know what I mean?
Or even challenge
Like,
this idea that a God exists. It's
right.
like, wait a minute. And one of the questions I always had growing up, and when I learned about Christianity and how it was forced, I was astonished at how many Black folks were Christian. I mean, you could kind of take, the historical and institutional aspects and kind of understand that, but that never sat well with me. It never sat well that there were so many of us who did identify as Christian,
Right.
especially knowing what it's part in what it did,
Exactly.
to our ancestors.
And just the things that it supports, and that they obviously don't know about because they didn't read the fucking book. So
Yeah, a lot of people, even my mentor who tried to discourage me from speaking up, she admitted that she had not read the Bible in its entirety because I brought up the Old Testament and I said that isn't indicative of a loving God
right.
at
I mean,
all.
and that's the thing about that argument is like, but your God still did that. Like, what I'm saying?
Exactly. I'm
It's
like,
like,
what point was
I
it trying
mean,
to prove? He,
I
she,
understand
it,
he
or
stopped.
whatever.
I understand he stopped drinking, but like he did some
Yeah.
damage. So what was it that inspired you to put your foot down again and say, I'm gonna do this activism full time?
It was it was interesting because the progression of the organization over the years, and actually being persistent and running the organization within my skill set. Before I took on activism full time, I was the event services manager at the CDC's conference center by Emory University. And so it helped that I had good practical skills and putting events together,
Right.
also having formerly been an executive assistant. So I was good at creating and also executing. And so that was what, and then also getting back to people, being timely in, my communication. So what ended up happening was that, over the years, the requests and the demands for my appearances and my work increased, which, is what we want, right?
Right.
It's good to become a bit more popular and a bit more well noted. And so I appreciated that. And so it really was cutting into my time at the job. Plus, there were some other things. There were some other factors and some bullshit at that job that I had been
Oh,
dealing
of
with since
course.
day one. That had been an issue for years. And so, and then also the like also a changing in my household. My husband has he's immune compromised. He has sickle cell anemia, and so as his health started to take a drastic turn, taking all of these things into consideration. And it was
Excuse
scary.
me.
I was nervous. I was like, I don't know how the hell this is going
Of
to turn
course.
out. I could go the safe route. I could stay at this job where I know that there's a steady paycheck, even though we're contractors. And with the current administration, there's no guarantees there. But
Mm-hmm.
knowing that I had almost 10 years in, I was like, well, damn, maybe this could be the safe route. Maybe I could just give up on that and just, kind of fall back. But considering what my identity and what this did for me, and what I and also what I came to understand has helped so many others. The fact that we were expanding, that we were growing, and that there were a number of people who appreciated what we do. And what I was doing, I said, what, I can't turn back now. I can't quit. I can't quit this,
Right.
because at the time, and seeing people come in and seeing people go, it was so important that we continued to grow the organization, because we still had people coming to us. We still had people
Mm-hmm.
who were saying, they were, not only were they feeling relief that they weren't alone, but
Right.
they were still facing challenges. And
Yeah,
so,
that's definitely what feels good. It's just like going to the recovering from religion meeting.
mm-hmm,
Like I got that feeling like, yo, I'm not fucking crazy.
mm-hmm,
Like a snake did not talk to nobody. Like, yes, I'm around people who get it. You know what I mean?
yes,
But
absolutely.
but yeah, I Wow. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
definitely. I can only imagine the fear you faced.
Yeah,
You
and
know.
plus, the commute to the job was getting terrible. We had just moved into a new house, and it was like traveling to and from the job 3 hours every
Oof.
day, five
Three
days a week,
hours.
like an hour, almost an hour and a half getting home,
Oh
and getting there, and
no.
almost an hour and a half going home,
Oh
and then
okay.
dealing with
Oh
a bunch of nonsense,
right.
things
Because
that,
that drive will just take the energy out of you. You know.
absolutely. And then just dealing with all of the things that were going on there and seeing an environment that wasn't going to change, and being expected to just conform to what the conditions of what was there. I mean, it was great. It served this time. I had basic, and part of it was that I had outgrown it too. So,
Yeah.
and I wasn't going to just walk away from what I helped to build, and also what, and like I said before, the work we were doing. So it was decided that it was, plus I had just come back from a speaking engagement in Puerto Rico.
Mm.
And so, like I said, and that was a part of the request and the
What
demand. So I
What
was
was that
being
like?
asked. It was amazing. It was great to see. I had no idea the level of activism, the secular activism that took place in Puerto Rico. So,
Hmm.
when you think of the Caribbean, I mean, it's still a very heavily Catholic country, or,
Heathens
Commonwealth.
Unite. Yeah.
Rest. But yeah, so when I learned about, the activism and the organizations there,
Yeah, there's a lot of time, squirrel.
I met a lot of, yeah, I met other Afro Latina atheists, and other, so I was just like, after, after realizing that, being invited to to speak in different places, and realizing that it was only going to increase, I was like, you know what, fuck this place.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much what I was like, you know what, it was time. I actually have been putting it off for a few
Mm,
years. So
right.
I was like, yeah, you know what, it's time for me to
So you
go.
was already kind of planning it anyway. You
Oh
you
yeah,
knew you was going
I
to.
had an exit. Yeah, it was definitely an
Yeah.
exit strategy. I was already on my way out in a number of ways. And I'm like, if I'm
Hmm.
going to go out, I'm going to go out knowing that I'm doing something that I know I wanted to do. And that, because but in those years I had already, gotten some, some media coverage. We had gotten the media coverage. We had gained some notoriety. And so by then I was like,
Marquise, what's going on?
I'm like, it's only going to get better, because I know that I'm going to put every bit of, my dedication and time and energy that I put into that job, that I put into my family, into this.
Yeah, and it's something that
So,
you like, something that you
right.
actually have a passion for.
Yeah. Yeah. And I tell you, I mean, no matter how rough it gets sometimes,
Because
that turned out to be the best decision I ever made.
you have two children, right? And well,
I have
obviously
three.
with three,
Yes.
I keep forgetting about Janae.
Yes, because my boys, my boys
Yeah,
Isaiah and Miles. So
very well
yeah,
behaved young men.
yeah, they're
That I see.
teenagers now. So yeah,
Okay.
things are changing. It's
Okay.
interesting.
You let
You
them lock
know,
their door now. Yeah, yeah,
well,
yeah,
not
yeah,
that I,
yeah,
no, not that I let them,
yeah.
but there's just some,
but
you know,
but I
we're, I'm
guess
sorry,
traveling
we're.
wasn't that hard on them then. Because I was gonna ask, like, was your constant travel, like, would it put a strain on your relationship with your children?
Well, it's interesting because it seems to have at times, but for the most part, they had gotten used to it. When I had events that were within driving distance, I would take the boys with me.
Okay.
We make trips out of it. So
Oh.
it wasn't that they weren't being included in all of it. But there were times where they were allowed to go. Of course, if I'm flying somewhere, then they couldn't
Right.
go there. But
Yeah.
you know, so, and then I would always make sure that we spoke at least once. While I was away, I would always
Okay.
bring something back for them. So it was them, knowing that, well, even when I traveled, I was still there. At least I would hope. So. But yeah, but I mean, it was a bit of a challenge though, because but the one thing I always wanted to stress to my household was that, if there's something that you're passionate about, you should go for it.
Yeah.
And that while I have a family, there are still things that I know I want to do to not just better myself but there's also helping other people. So there is a lot that, and probably that's some that, as sometimes as women, I think we burden ourselves with that,
Mm-hmm.
but, um, the mission and, it was, I could say it was a calling. It's not a calling to ministry, but it was definitely a
Oh Lord.
call to activism. It was a call to liberation as
Yeah.
well, because that's what we encourage for people.
Mm-hmm. And so how would you say COVID has like affected your activism for now? I mean, I know you had a lot of things to cancel. I think the cruise was canceled,
We
correct?
had to reschedule the cruise. We had to
Mm-hmm.
reschedule the Women of Color Beyond Belief conference. Of course, COVID, much like with other events, has impacted us significantly. I had travel scheduled through March and May. Of course, that was canceled, which did affect my income because it also affected an ability to raise money for the organization. By the
Right.
way, we're a nonprofit 501c3, but
Mm-hmm.
what it has done, the summer though became quite busy virtually though,
Right.
because as the community, and I think we've had a head start on this, right? Because the secular community, for those who,
Right.
for people like
We
you
was
who are
always on
already
the
involved,
internet. Yeah.
yeah, right. Y'all are into gaming, you do other things, and so there was a good rebound, with doing more events via Zoom, and also being able to still raise money on top of that. And we've always we always encourage people to be as safe as possible anyway. Make
Yeah.
sure
Unlike
don't.
certain churches.
Right. It's like, my goodness. Yeah, they were at the center of, the pandemic because they were still meeting in large numbers. And true, some people may
But
not have
hey, I
known that
mean,
they.
they were protected by the blood of Jesus.
Exactly, right.
In the fucking grave. I'm
You
sorry.
had some of these, yeah, you had some of these pastors who were defying the stay-at-home orders, and
And getting arrested.
right, yeah, as they should have
And of
been.
course, they're going to use it as a martyr story to raise more money from their flock, which I feel sorry for. I mean, I make fun of them,
Right.
but I still feel bad for them.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
Uh,
granted, it has compelled us. Of course, we've limited a lot of our in-person engagement.
the books
Um,
were booming with Zoom events and
yes, there
showcases.
were. Yes, there were a lot of. I saw a surge in online appearances. Which was good because that helped. That helped make up for the in-person events that were missed. So,
So,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
okay, so I want to get like a little bit of an insider life into the traveling speaker. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
Like, this is a silly question, but but it could venture off into something serious. Like, was there ever like a time where you have you ever seen the show Atlanta?
No, I mean,
Oh,
I've
okay.
seen part of one episode, but
All right. Well, there was a scene on there. I mean, I'm not spoiling nothing important, but like a promoter was like trying to jip the main character's cousin.
mm-hmm.
So the main character's cousin eventually just found him and just smacked him in the face and get him his money. Like, did you ever have to check a promoter for trying to jip you or anything, or do everybody pay up front? Like, how's it work on the inside? Tell us. Tell
Well,
us.
I'm pretty much my own booking agent. I still do a lot. So people connect with me directly. And, because a couple of years ago, I started setting, an honorarium as such, which was, still flexible. But I think I did have a bit of a challenge with a speaking engagement at Vanderbilt University. And because some of those, with the schools, there's certain paperwork that they have to fill out, especially
Mm-hmm.
if you're a club. And so somehow the paperwork got lost in the mix. And
Mm.
so I was just like, so it took
Lost.
right, yeah. So somehow there was some extra paperwork that was needed in order to process, and so it took a while, to get the money. But it was like, that was a bit of a challenge. But
Okay.
I would say that most folks have been very, very good. And even if it's just me, even if it's just me speaking, and the travel costs were covered, it's still a good opportunity to raise money for the organization. So, for the most part, I haven't really had that many issues.
I
Most of the
mean,
groups
now
have been really, really
you
good.
did have like a colleague basically demand you to let him room with you once, right?
I wouldn't call him a colleague. There was someone I met at one of the Sunday Assembly conferences that took place in Atlanta in 2015, and yes, out of the blue, for the American Atheist
Like the
Convention in
audacity.
2017, right? Contacts me on Meetup and says, could he perhaps room with me? It's an older white guy. I'm like, wait a minute. First of all, on his
Who are
face.
you?
Right. I don't remember who you are. We haven't talked in since I met you 2 years ago. And why would you ask me something like that? I'm just like, are you just going
Right.
around randomly asking people, can they do that? I mean, first of all, how creepy and stalkery was that? And how clueless
Davis
were
was
you?
good.
I'm like, what, just how, first of all, just that was just rude and
All right.
disrespectful. I'm just like, what?
And
And I'm like, how did you find me of
right.
all people to
Exactly. And
mm,
and we got 15 more minutes here, but I'm gonna ask because like just for me being on the internet lately, I know it's probably happened with me, but being involved fully within the atheist community, were there like figures that you, without spilling any tea, like you don't have to spill no tea, but like were
spill
there
no tea or
figures
wine or whatever?
were there figures that you just sort of lost respect for? Like, you know what I mean? Like once you kind of like got close to them or just seen like
Hmm.
like besides the obvious David Silverman, that was tragic. And
Yeah, that's about all I'm going to say on that. But yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, so there are a number of people who I've been very disappointed by. I mean, there were some folks who were great speakers, they were wonderful speakers on stage, but when they got off stage, they were real assholes.
Mm,
They barely engaged, they barely communicated. And I've come across a lot of people who were basically self-serving. They only cared about what they wanted to get out of it. And so that was extremely disappointing to me. The
mm.
phrase "never meet your heroes,"
Right.
but and yes, so there have
And
been yes, is the short answer.
yeah, cause like just being on the internet, like like I remember Thunderfoot talking about why they gotta be black non-believers, and I was
Hmm.
like, shut the fuck
Yeah,
up, Thunderfoot. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
but it was
yeah.
like, I respected him at one point. I mean, I still do, but like that was like very. I thought he was too smart to say something like that, and
Right. And unfortunately, you kind of expect that. I kind of I have a low bar of expectation generally for white people, you know,
and
and
speaking of
that's
that,
not to that isn't to dismiss the people I've come to know and love,
right?
but I generally have a low bar of expectation.
It's
And
and speaking of
also,
which,
uh-huh.
oh, I'm sorry, but I just want to ask your opinion too. So, like, I really looked up the Sam Harris. I really did. I mean, and and I'm still trying to like
Mhm.
him. I'm still trying to like him, but it's just like
And this is the
I don't want
problem.
to call
Yeah.
him the R word yet, but you can tell that he's privileged. But I just want to know, like,
Oh, absolutely.
just like actually, just your thoughts on not just Sam, but I think people like Sam. Like, like they were brilliant, what I'm saying, when talking about religion and secularism and stuff. They just seem so brilliant, but then like you hear their ideas on politics and just socioeconomic issues, and you're just like
And there's the
you know,
fundamental disconnect when it comes to people who live in that academic bubble, and they have so many people probably, with their nose up their asses, that they think they can speak on issues that they clearly should not.
right,
You're a you're a scholar or whatever it is in your own field, but when you're talking about issues that pertain to racial justice, you think you can speak on it with other white
right.
people and not do your
But
research. But
my
it's
my
uh-huh.
thing is he had a conversation with Hannibal Buress, and I hate to say this about Sam, because like I said, I love Sam. I mean, but he was
Mm.
pissing me off.
How dismissive was he, right? You know,
You heard
how,
it too?
no, I
Oh,
didn't, but
okay.
I can only imagine
But yeah,
how it
because
went.
Hannibal was understandably emotional, but
Mm-hmm.
Sam was like, well, let's be rational about this.
Like,
Hannibal,
excuse
like,
me? Right,
like,
right.
but he was so like, he didn't mean it, I don't think, but he was very victim blamey, and it's just
Well, yeah,
like,
whether you mean it or not, you know, if you're going to be rational and intellectual, you should know
right,
when you know that means being able to read the room and being empathetic. And so when people, you know, when you have people in our community who try to say, well, I'm just being logical, and you're not,
hmm
you know, you're not actually showing that, you know, you care about the human condition, that becomes a problem.
right, because unfortunately, Sam has like influence, and and also too, like there's times where even Richard Dawkins will insert foot in mouth. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
But
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, since they're two of the four horsemen, like of course people look at them and be like, oh, that's what all of them atheists think. You know what I'm saying? So
And that's where people need to do more research. You know, that's where people need to now, because now there's more available. Whereas there would have been a lack of it, you know, there was lack of information or not as much as before. And I like to credit, you know, being for doing that. You know, we
hmm
have contributed to the research and for a lot of the for books that are out now
right,
within the atheist and secular community. And so there's more than just them, you know.
yeah,
Instead of just being so angry at them, support the organizations and the people who are on that level and who get it. So
and
I can understand being, you know, we challenge the folks who follow them blindly. It's like you're trading one ideology for another,
right.
right? You want to be careful not to do that
Because that's
because,
what apologists do. They be like,
right.
oh, Richard Dawkins is your prophet. Your God is Sam Harris. Like, no, it isn't.
Right. And that means that we can hold those people accountable
Yes, and we
when need
do.
be, you know, and I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to make excuses for the things that they do because guess what? If they're wrong, they're wrong.
Yeah, and that's what separates, the atheist community from most religious communities. That man in Chapel Hill, that murderer. We
Mm-hmm.
we accept we he's an atheist. Yeah. We was like, yeah, he's most definitely an atheist, but we don't fuck with him.
Right,
You
exactly.
know.
I mean, it just means that that's the one thing we have in common, you know, going back to the whole
hmm
Black Atheists of Atlanta thing. You know, we're atheists and we're Black, but obviously what we stand for is totally different. And no, the shit that the shit that they were saying, it's like, nah, we don't mess with that. So
Right.
yeah, and so it's okay for us. We don't put each other just like the same way Christians don't want to be put in the same box. And
Right.
we've actually expanded our mindset to say, you know what, there are some progressive believers out
Of
there. You know,
course.
there are some folks who they don't just hear the word atheist and they take off running,
Right.
right? So the same courtesy and the same respect should be extended to us.
And like you said, we actually hold each other accountable.
Yes, yes, we do. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Shoot. But what do you have coming up? Any other
So
virtual events?
actually, yes. So on Tuesday, October 27th, I'm going to post this again. I'll be a part of the Smithsonian's National Museum for African American Cultures God Talk Digital event. It's going to air on their Facebook page. You can go to their website at the National Museum of African American Culture. I'll be one of 14 panelists
Oh,
in
okay.
a two-part session talking about, you know, religion in the Black community, how it's changing, especially among millennials. And one of the
Well,
last year, one of
speaking
our
of which,
members, uh-huh.
no, speaking of which, every time I see those articles about like why are young people leaving the church, like like
Right.
they'll list all the they're all legit reasons they'll list it, but like they never list the obvious because it's bullshit. You
Exactly,
know what I
right?
mean?
Yes, because a lot more of the young folks are not buying it
Because we
anymore.
fact check shit now.
Right,
We know what
right.
evolution is. But go ahead. I just
Right.
wanted to make that caveat. I'm sorry.
Right. No, and I feel you on that because and it's just interesting to see some of these folks that we know who will challenge, the institution of, like Christianity and religion, but they still believe in God. So it's like, okay, that's a whole nother story there, but it's like,
they'll
okay,
leave
but
Christianity, but like adopt some Ooga Booga religion just because,
yes,
like.
and you know what? It's a process for some. Some people have to kind of jump their way around, and
Or
so
they got
and
to go the conspiracy theory route because I went through the Tariq Nasheed phase.
oh
So
right, yes,
I'm still gonna
right.
post some King Flex on the Black Nonbeliever page. Don't kick
You
me
better
out,
not do
please.
that. I'm very, very particular about what goes in there.
Mac Lessons part 10.
But I think the good part about that is, it expands your skepticism mind,
Right,
right? It's like
exactly.
the more you realize that there is no God, the more the license you have to say, okay, well, what else is out there? And you can take some information and throw the rest of it away and be like, yeah, I don't think that sounds right either.
Right.
So, we go beyond the
Right.
religion.
Yeah. Yeah, because like I don't mind having a stereotype, but a lot of people just assume atheists be like, "Oh, you just think you smart because you an atheist."
Right,
Oh,
yeah. Or
atheists are
you're
so
just
smart.
angry at
But
yeah,
I'm
you're
just,
angry
but
at
I'm just
God. Like,
like,
no.
but the thing is, like, I don't understand why we have that stereotype. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to say
Yeah, you know
a
why?
snake didn't talk to
Because
somebody,
yes, and it doesn't, it really doesn't
because there's
take
some dumbass atheists out here.
there really are.
Mm.
And yeah, let's just be real about that. And I think that part of it is because there's just such this, I mean, let's be honest, some of these books out here are like encyclopedias and they're so thick, they're almost like the War and Peace book, right? By
Right,
Tolstoy. And it doesn't take all that, but unfortunately, because so many people were robbed of the ability to critically think about it and to say, okay, well, one isn't making two, you know what I'm saying?
mm.
Or and so and also the fear factor, there's and the
Right,
community factor. So there's a lot of things that come along with folks who don't necessarily, just let it go altogether, or think, oh, okay, well, why didn't I get this before?
right.
So and there's this, and I think that this is where as a community, we could better PR this, right?
Hmm.
So it doesn't have to take a whole bunch of, it doesn't have to take an intellectual diatribe to explain why God doesn't exist,
Exactly.
or gods don't exist. The one thing I like to do is to try to point it back to the things that we grew up with. Think
Right.
about all the other things that kind of taught us to be critical thinkers, all of the things that we, that we always question. Now apply that to your religion.
Yeah.
Apply that to the fact that think about the fact that you don't believe in all those other gods.
Exactly. Like.
you know so there isn't this long, or like this
like.
long painstaking journey.
Right.
For now, for some it is, and we
Hmm.
respect that, but for the most part, yeah, it doesn't really take that. And it's like,
Yeah.
sure, it's good to be armed with a decent amount of information, but use your common sense. It's okay to do that. It's
Right.
okay to think about all the things that that we've
Well,
had in front of us.
we're heading into the 2-minute warning, and I would just like to say, Mandisa, you were on the Atheist Experience with Matt Dillahunty.
Yes.
You were also on Talk Heathen.
Mm-hmm.
You were also on Godless Bitches.
Yes.
Okay, way more superior shows than this. So
No,
I
no.
am so glad you came.
Well, you one of my homies, Marcus. You represent for being, and I appreciate all of our supporters. Anytime any one of y'all are doing something and I can be a part of it, I'm always happy to. So,
Yeah, man. You always give me
yes.
the tea on the popular atheists. I love it.
Yes.
I mean, Dusty Smith got a podcast. You should hop on it, man.
Yeah,
He
no
he changed.
thanks.
He changed for real.
Really?
He is progressive now. He annoys me how progressive he is.
Well,
That's
it's
how
just
much he changed.
well, he got so caught up in his own cult-like status that someone like me probably still might not be as important enough. And I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm okay with actually engaging the organizers, the people who are in tune with the Being Network, and what we do. So I'm totally fine with doing podcasts like yours because you've been in this, you've been involved with us for a few years. So I really do appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you, and just shout yourself out again, man. Tell them where they can find you and where you're going to be at in the
Absolutely.
future.
Yes. So my IG, if you hadn't seen it, is Mandisa0904. You can follow me there. If you want to follow Black Nonbelievers, it's B Nonbelievers Inc. on Instagram. We're also on Twitter at B Nonbelievers. We have a YouTube channel, Black Nonbelievers Inc. You can find this information at blacknonbelievers.org. I posted the website in the chat. I think you should be able to see it during the archive. So, yeah, you can
And
follow us here. And please do
oh,
support us if you can.
and another favor, please
Yes.
relay this message to Sarah Hayter.
No.
You're very pretty, and I
Oh,
want to
my
marry you. And please
gosh.
come back to Atlanta because I missed you.
Oh, my gosh. You're going to have to
I
get
will
through
fight
Muhammad for
Muhammad
that.
Syed. I will fight him. No. But
So
I do want to
funny.
meet them. I met Muhammad, but I do want to meet Sarah. But thank you for coming, and I really appreciate you. For real.
Oh, no
Like for
problem.
all you've done.
Thank
Right?
you.
All right. Peace out, everyone.
Bye-bye.